better place. That principle best describes the values and attitudes that guided my brother's personal and professional life. Tikkun Olam, loosely, some people interpret it to mean social justice. But if you look at the broader definition, the original context, it's a call to rectify injustice and restore the world back in line with the principles outlined in the Torah. In the Christian faith, the Torah represents the first 5 books of our Bible. We commonly refer to them as the books of the law, rectifying and restoring justice, bringing the world back into harmony and peace with God's original law. That was Eric. That whole principle is consistent with our Judeo-Christian beliefs. I had the opportunity to visit Eric's office during one of his earlier judicial appointments. He was very proud and excited to show it to me. He had a picture on the wall of our grandmother, and he said, "This picture is always to remind me of where we've come from." The second thing he showed me was his judicial robe, and then he had said, "I have this full-length mirror here. And before I walk out of this office, I look in this mirror and I whisper a prayer." His prayer was that I be led by God and that all my rulings exemplify justice, tempered with mercy, and rendered with compassion. Justice, tempered by mercy, and rendered with compassion. That was Eric. But that just wasn't Eric professionally. That was Eric in his personal life. He believed that and he lived that. In his personal life, I can tell you this, Eric always strove to be a good big brother, a role model, a mentor, and a friend. To me, Eric was all of that. Now, there's a 4-year age difference between the two of us, so our friend groups never overlapped, our circles never meshed, but every day, at the end of the day, Eric would always come in and check on me. He would talk. Often I was sharing with some of his friends. I knew you all by name long before I ever knew you, because he would always give me that rundown, and we'd talk about what went on in each other's day. Eric never made me feel like I was the younger one, the one that bothered him. Well, most of the time he didn't. A few times I'm sure I was getting to him. Within the family, I was the second born, but I was always very small, at least back then, and very sickly. So my father would often charge my brothers, "You all make certain you got to look after Marvin because he's a little small and he tends to get in trouble." So they were always watching over me. Eric took that charge seriously. From day one, I still remember Eric telling me stories about what I was like as a baby. He said, "You cried a whole lot." But he always, and I mean always, looked out for me. I always wanted to be in Eric's shadow. There was never, ever really any real competition between the two of us. I loved him and everything he did. I always considered him and his friends trailblazers. And I often tell Eric, "You all blazed the trail. I had the easy job of just following in your footsteps." When Eric was graduating high school, he went to a school that wasn't our normally districted high school. When it was time for me to graduate, me to go to high school, he was leaving. I said, "Eric, I want to go to the same high school you went to." He and my mother made it happen. 3 years later, when it was my time to graduate, Eric knew how much I was wanting to get away from home. He took on the hard job of convincing my mother that it'd be okay for me to go away to the university with him. And if you knew my mom, that was no easy sell at all. She wasn't letting me go nowhere. She had already had her heart set on me going to Miami-Dade. Now, there was a reason why she was like that. But Eric convinced her not only to let me go, he then walked my application through the entire process to make certain that I got in. At home, Eric and I shared the same room. We had bunk beds. He had the top one, I had the bottom. We had bunk beds until Eric went away for college. We was in that room. That was our space. Had a desk in the middle with a TV there. And if you really knew Eric, you knew we were going to operate on a schedule. Small little black and white TV, but we had a schedule we went by. I knew he was going to look at Perry Mason, and he knew I was going to want to look at Marcus Welby and Medical Center. And we operated on a schedule. That was all growing up. When I got to college and I was finally up there with him, we were sharing an apartment. And guess what? We still had a schedule that we operated under. When it was time to study, he'd have all his books out on the table. I'd have mine out, and every now and then he'd look over and say, yeah, you're doing good. You got this right. You're doing this. And that always would mean a lot to me. I think as a freshman, I'm the only freshman we were sitting down discussing that, oral contracts are binding in the state of Florida. Tacit agreements are binding in the state of Florida. That was Eric's way of saying, if you said you're going to do these dishes in the morning, Eric always watched out for me. When we were in college, I said, Eric, I want to join a fraternity. He said, great. And he was so excited. I said, but I don't want to join Kappa. Eric looked at me and said, not going to happen. Now, it was just, if you know, he was just matter of fact. He said, Marvin, that's not going to happen. And we would go back and forth. And finally, about the third day, Eric said, Marvin, I got to explain to you something. Let me tell you why that's not going to happen. He said, it's not about the colors. He said, it's not about the colors. It's not about me not liking the other frats. I got to watch over you. And I got to make certain you're all right. And if you're in the Kappa, I'm going to be there. And if not, my frat brothers that know me, they're going to watch over you. But if I let you join another fraternity, you may be where I can't get to you. And there are a lot of things that go on in fraternities that I don't want you exposed to. So I'd rather have you got one choice, Kappa or not. But I understood what he was saying. And as soon as he explained that to me, because he said, if anything, and I mean anything happened to you, Mama gonna kill me. And it was not that he was controlling, it's just that I went off to college early because I was 16 at the time. And Eric said, I gotta watch you at this university. And he did just that. He was never overbearing, but he was always that big brother that kept an eye on his younger brother. That was our relationship. My cars in the beginning were always his hand-me-down cars. By the time I was graduating, the whole family was up. We had the ceremony. We drove back here to Miami.